Okay, looks like we're live. Welcome to Wake Up Real Estate. Josh is on the road today. I gave him the day off. He deserved the day off.
Oh, you're so nice.
And then I made you work, Brendan. We have Brendan Rendo with what's it, the Homes in Orlando team. What company is that you're with now?
I'm actually with Next Home Neighborhood Realty.
Okay,
so
yeah, with Next Home. Cool. Are you a KV Core user, or what do you use for?
No, Real Geeks.
Real Geeks.
I'm a Real Geeks. They give us KV Core, but I've had Real Geeks for 10 years.
Cool.
So
I always like to ask, just curious. The real reason we have Brendan on today, I'm going to show a social poster today, and then we're going to talk a little bit about macroeconomics, and just a little bit about what's going on beyond mortgage interest rates, which, Brendan, I think is the way most of us in the industry experience the decisions that the Fed and the government make.
Mm-hmm.
What are mortgage rates now, and how do they affect our business, right?
Right. Yeah. But there's so much behind it that you have to understand.
Yeah. So we're not going to do that in a half hour today, all of it, but I think it might be cool if we just together, and I've seen Brendan talking a lot about this, if we just kind of peeled the onion back a little bit.
Yep.
Let me bring up the social poster today, just something we do, Brendan, on the show. I'm going back to the Travis and Taylor image again, just because Brendan can't think. So this is on Fridays. I like to do an open house list post here and there. Just here's a list of open houses. The Super Bowl is starts around 6 on Sunday, which means you'll have plenty of time to check out some of these fun Pinellas County open houses. And then there's a little cartoon you guys can lift for me if you want to use this one. So,
the one I'm doing today is price cuts.
Right. Yeah. So how are you doing that? Like just a list of the reduced properties, or?
Yeah. I usually do it by county. Go in MLS, grab the ones that have been reduced for the past week, and here, if you want to see any houses that have price reductions this past week, let's go see them.
Yeah. How are things in Orlando? And this will play into our broader conversation here, because Orlando's an interesting market. It's dead in Orlando.
Dead. I do a weekly podcast, and we go through the numbers every week, and give you, for instance, condos are averaging less than 100 sales per week right now. Condo
What's
market.
Normal?
You should be somewhere around 300.
Yeah. Just vacation buyers. Locals.
Vacation buyers, just normal. Based on the volume we have, we should be somewhere around 300. Then houses. Last week was the first week we've picked up, but they've been averaging around 250 a week. And if you think about that, that's only 1,000 units in the Orlando, general area that are selling, which that's not a lot of houses, and it's been really since the rates peaked back in October. It's just been very, very slow overall. I think we had a little peak last week, because you look at end of December, beginning of January, that's when, we dropped back down to that 6.6, 6.5 rate. And I think that's really where, the market kind of loosened up, and if you look back, 6.5 was where we were still steady, not real crazy, but we were steady. Once we went above that 6.5, kind of like everybody kind of said, eh.
What do you think it is about that number that has?
I think it's the top of the affordability. I really think it is. When you look historically, even during back in the 2007, 2008 region, the debt to income ratio, the highest it got was about 36%.
Yeah.
We're pretty much everything these days is averaging close to 45 to 50. Everyone's right on that margin. And I think it's nerve-wracking for a lot of people to have to, decide, am I really going to do this? Am I going to put that much stress on myself? And it's uncomfortable for a lot of people.
And then there's the backdrop in the macroeconomic world of people are losing their jobs despite what the numbers, despite what is reported.
Well, see, that's what we try to get beyond constantly in our podcast. Is you can't look at the headlines. For instance, the jobs report last week, everyone knows it was bullshit. Everybody knows it was bullshit.
What was it, like 300,000, and they were expecting 150,000? Just so everybody, because I don't think a lot of people watching now know what the numbers were, but it was insanely cooked.
Yeah. And what they don't tell you is the little asterisk down at the bottom that says, "Oh, we changed all of our calculations in the process." Because how do you go from ADP, which has been fairly reliable, usually in the past, pretty close to the government numbers, but you had 100 for ADP or 105, and you got 353 for the government. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It just you got to sit there and go, okay, why are they fluffing this? You're fluffing this because I think one, you got an election year, you got to try and make yourself look good.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, you got to look at everything. I look at everything kind of cynical in that this actually gives the Fed cover not to lower rates. The job market's too hot,
Right.
But
because if inflation's coming down and there's a little bit of a deflation going on.
Oh yeah, like this morning they came out with the revised CPI numbers, and guess what? Last year inflation was actually lower than what they said it was.
Okay. Wow, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and you just look at the stuff, but then like you said, you look at the other headlines, and you got layoffs here, layoffs there, UPS laying off 12,000 people. You got DocuSign just laid off 6% of their workforce. The whole programming, Google laid off 1,700 people.
Yeah.
So where are these layoffs coming into the numbers?
And those are a lot of the people who can't afford the inflated prices. I mean, we're up historically anyway.
Yeah. I've got an article that I'm trying to do a podcast on, and it actually goes over what you have to make in Orlando by area to afford the median price house. You will drop dead. Baldwin Park, you have to have a median income of $199,000 to afford the median house in Baldwin.
What is that, about 600, 550, 600?
I want to say it's 800, somewhere around 800, something like that. And and you're just looking at it. It's even, to afford a $450,000 house, the family has to make a median income of roughly $121,000.
Yeah.
Then you go into like something like RPR, where it will show you the median income in that area, and the median income is $79,000. 125, 75. And you just and when you start looking at that, everything starts to make sense. It's like, why are sales so slow? That's why they're so slow, because it just economically doesn't add up math-wise. Math doesn't lie.
The demand's not there, and the supply's not there because everybody's locked in with their 2 and 3%.
I mean, that's why you're seeing all these builders giving, unbelievable buy downs right now. I don't know if you saw, but D.R. Horton wrote off $65 million for buy downs last quarter,
which are basically just closing cost assistance that don't get factored into the appraisal, into the comps, right? There was something about that.
Yeah, if you do it as a buy down, it doesn't. If you do it as a closing cost contribution, it does.
Right, but it's the same thing.
Yeah, it is. It's the same thing. But it's like anything. They don't want to bring their prices down, but they're going to have something's got to break. I saw a thing on Unusual Whales that they were figuring rates got to come down to 5.5. Prices on homes have to drop approximately 28%, or incomes have to go up close to 32%, something like that. Well, which ones? The incomes aren't going up 32%, right? Rates aren't coming down anytime soon to 5.5.
No, prices are going to come down.
Prices have got to come down.
Yeah.
Prices have got to come down.
And anybody who's actually paying attention knows this, and that's the other reason they're not pulling the trigger. If somebody who's buying an $800,000 house is probably a little more savvy than, and they're looking around going,
Well, if you look at your weekly numbers, like in Orlando, anything priced over $1 million right now, average days on market 77 days. The average, or I always look original to final sales price. I don't care list to whatchamacallit. I want the original. They're giving 10% off the original list price. So on a $1.5 million home, you can expect to get at least $150,000 off that house.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's where these things were going like that
Yeah.
a year and a half ago, at list or above. Now people are having to discount.
So has California stopped showing up in Florida? I haven't paid too much attention to St. Pete because I've been in Pennsylvania a lot, but has that stopped the Texas?
Not so many Californians. We're still getting the New York, New Jersey baby boomers, who are retiring. Coulter just started a huge, I think 890 unit development in the land. Starting prices is $500,000. Right. Why? Because the baby boomers are the only ones who've got any money right now.
And they have cash.
They have cash.
So they're not as sensitive to the interest rates.
Yep.
They're putting down 50% or more. They're just buying it cash.
Yeah. Exactly. So and then, looking forward, I actually kind of got into a couple of debates, pretty good debates with agents who were out there just spewing what everyone else was spewing, which was, oh, there's going to be 6 rate cuts. No, there's not. Oh, yes, Brendan, there is. No, there's not. And again, you go back and you just have to look at the numbers and have common sense.
Let's talk about why there's not going to be 6. I know why, you know why, but I think everybody just repeats the headlines. And the headlines come from a lot of what the Federal Reserve does is they're just talking to set expectations, but they don't actually do most of what they say. They're like manipulating the market.
Yeah. I mean, Powell. Well, the thing you have to listen to Powell very carefully, and he did say multiple times, higher, longer, higher, longer. Okay. Then you look again historically. Historically, off of a peak, they wait 6 months before they do a cut. Well, when did they peak? They peaked. What, October, November?
To August or so. Yeah.
Like that. So you start counting forward. So what does that tell me? It tells me May, June is when the cut's going to come.
Yeah.
And then, interesting enough, the Congressional Budget Office yesterday came out with their report and said they expect unemployment to be at 4.4% at the end of next year. You know what that triggered in my head? First rate cut's coming in June. Why? Yeah. Again, historically, after the first rate cut, unemployment goes up 6 months after.
Here comes the recession.
Here comes the recession. Yep. Yeah. 6 months after the first Fed rate cut is when unemployment starts going up. And you can go back again, look at your charts historically. That's what it shows. Yeah. It's economics is a pattern. It's a pattern. You just kind of watch it. And there's other things right now that just worldwide, macro, when you look at the world, that are just blowing your mind. The biggest one, quite honestly, is commercial real estate.
Yeah.
We had two huge bank failures. Was it the third and fourth largest bank failures last year? And the bank that bought one of the bank's assets
is now failing.
Yeah. And here's another thing historically. You know what happened? And they're a public bank, and they should get their butts ringed for this. Is their top risk, their risk manager at New York Community Bank resigned a month before the numbers came out. What happened with Signature Bank? The risk officer resigned before the numbers came out.
So that guy's screaming, there's a fire, something's wrong.
There's a fire. I'm not losing my butt. I'm not going to jail, basically. I'm out of here. Have a nice day.
And the reason you're bringing that up is because they had a lot of commercial real estate on their books, as did a lot of other banks.
Yeah. Well, all the community banks, the top 20 community banks, 50% of their assets are in commercial paper. And what is failing right now? Commercial. You look at San Francisco, they're handing the properties back. Blackstone handed their property back. They had a $300 million mortgage on a property in New York City, which was their headquarters. They said, we don't want it anymore.
And they can afford to keep it.
Yeah, they can afford to keep it. But that building right now is trying to be sold for $150 million, and they can't sell it. And you're seeing it's, and there's so much exposure throughout the world. You had a German bank this week. I think it's their second or third largest bank, saying that they're increasing their reserves, $231 million for losses in United States commercial real estate.
Yeah.
You had one of the biggest Japanese banks take a 20% hit. Okay. So it's like anything. When Signature tried to sell their assets, they couldn't, because they were going to take, a 20, get 25 cents on the dollar for these assets. So when you've got to raise capital, all of a sudden you're in a world of hurt. And that's when the banks fail. Yellen actually came out and quietly has been telling all these regional commercial banks, tighten your reserves, increase your reserves, increase your liquidity. They know it's coming. They know it's coming. And that's, people are like, well, how does that affect us? Well, it's money supply. If you have bad assets, what are you doing? And you have to write it off. You're decreasing the money supply. What's happened for the first time in 90 years? The money supply, the M2 money supply, is down 3.6%. When was the last time that happened? The Great Depression.
I was going to say, is that depression, not the great financial crisis?
Yeah, the Great Depression.
So just a few comments here. I've heard this one, convert office space to residential housing. It's just not feasible. Like the plumbing, and a lot of times you just can't.
The cost to do it is huge. And then again, who's going to finance it? If all these banks are having all this liquidity problem, if I've got to hold my liquidity in, what can I not do? I can't create loans. Or if I'm going to create a loan, instead of being 10% down, I'm going to come to you and say, well, I need 40% down. And what are people going to do? I can't do that. I'm going to walk away from this project.
How long before the tightening of credit standards, how long do you think before that hits residential, like it did after 2008 and 9? Because it's probably going to happen again, right?
It's happening in commercial right now.
Right.
They are really tightening down the commercial. But the biggest problem is the refinances, because we've got roughly, I think it's at least $1 trillion or $1.5 trillion worth of commercial paper that has to be refinanced in the next year. Okay. And you're talking people who have been sitting at anywhere between 0 and 2% interest rates, now having to go to 5 to 8% interest rates.
And they don't have any extra revenue that the tenant pool has shrunk because of work from home.
It's like doing a debt service coverage loan. The math doesn't work. The math doesn't work. And your value on your property goes down. So now your LTV goes up. So now do you fall within the parameters?
Yeah. So, looking back in history, what do you think happens here? A lot of these smaller banks fail, but the bigger banks have exposure to them. At some point, everybody expects the government to just bail it all out, or what?
To me, it's an unfortunate that the Fed, the Fed's going to have to come in, print money, create an emergency program, just like they did with Signature and the other ones, where they all of a sudden, we've got $2 trillion line they created for them. Where'd the $2 trillion come from?
Yeah, us in the future.
Keypad, right? So you're going to have to do that. But what you're going to see is who's going to get the assets. The big banks will get the assets. So we're going to go from, I think there's 1,100 possible banks, I think, out there right now. You'll see that shrink up to, I bet you, half of it. And a lot of people don't know this, that there's a law that says that any one bank can never hold more than 10% of the assets of everything in the United States. Okay. Well, they broke that law last year. They broke it with Chase. When Chase has it. When Chase took the assets, it increased them to, I think, 12%, somewhere in that ballpark. So they broke the law. So the laws don't matter. So you've just got these conglomerates. You just see all these conglomeration, pushing to centralize everything instead of diversification.
So I asked you before we got on, does the government print their way out of this again, or are we not able to do it anymore?
I don't think we can do it anymore. I think they will.
Yeah.
I think they'll turn on the, you know,
Yeah.
they're going to have to. Well, look at China right now. China, you think we're in a mess. China just dumped $287 billion into their stock market to try and prop up their stock market. It worked for a day.
Yeah.
I mean, literally worked for a day, you know, and they
The
started.
market news.
Yeah, it just at some point, it's like anything in life. At some point, the bill comes due. You know, you look at, I mean, you look at everything economically for consumers. We're over $1 trillion in credit card debt. You got 40% of the people who had student loans starting in October, November said, "Screw it, we're not going to pay them." So you take
Was
those
it
people.
40% who
It was
just
40%.
didn't
Just said,
resume
"Nope,
paying? Yeah.
we're done." Yeah, right. So you take those people out of the housing market,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because they're done. You know,
Their credit's shot now too.
yeah, their credit's shot now too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you look at it and you're watching our pool of possible buyers go like this. It's just shrinking, you know? And I was like, oh, it's going to pop back up. But then again, you go back to the graphs and you look at the lines of where we're at currently with buyers, you know, volume versus even 2015, 16, and 17. We're half the number.
Yeah. And there's still a lot of people in the business to compete with.
Yeah. Yeah. We got more people competing for less opportunities.
Yeah. So, you know, when I came into the business, it was pretty slow in the late 90s and stuff. And I came in the office I was at, he was focused on property management. So, you know, I guess where I'm going with this, and I'm gonna, before I do, because we only have a half hour, I want to make sure everybody starts watching your podcast. What's that called, and where can they find it?
They can find it on YouTube, and it's the Homes in Orlando team, Brendan Rendo.
I'll look that up. Yeah, because you and is that your like business partner?
Oh yeah, he's a mortgage gentleman I've worked with for like 12 years.
Okay. So looking for you. Homes in Orlando.
Yeah, let me.
What's the channel called?
Let me find my channel. The Homes in Orlando.
Yeah, I got it. There we go. Sure. So guys, be sure to subscribe to Brendan's channel so you can see that podcast every week. Brendan, what other? I watch a lot of YouTubers who keep me informed on this stuff. George Gammon. There's a guy called Saks Realty who does some good content that's geared toward real estate around macro. What other channels and resources do you recommend?
One of my favorites, quite honestly, is Nobody Special. He's out of Pennsylvania, actually, and just straight up, you know, just very honest. Does a podcast every morning at 9. I think it's 9 o'clock now.
Yeah.
And I watch him. I watch Economic Ninja. Who else do I watch?
You watch Greg Manarino at all?
What's that?
Greg Manarino.
I haven't watched him.
He's a trip. His whole thesis is that they are going to hyperinflate. They're going to try to inflate away the debt, and all the stuff we see in the Middle East right now really has to do with powers that be needing a war. You know, and I say that in an effort to make you more depressed out there. but it is. I think it definitely makes sense.
It's not about being depressed, but it's about understanding.
Yeah,
you got to understand what you're up against, so you know how to, it's like anything. You know, you need to know your opponent, so you know how to approach them. You know, and I'll tell you one thing is next time someone asks you, you know, what do you think of the market? Don't ever say I don't have a crystal ball. Don't ever say that, because it makes you not look like an expert. What you say is, you know what? I can tell you what I see from charts and data that I see every week, and this is what I'm seeing, and this is why I feel this way. Because you've just elevated yourself against everyone else. Because 99% of agents are just going to say, "Oh, I read this, and you know, I don't have a crystal ball."
And it's not cool to say, "Yeah, real estate just always goes up." That's not cool, because it's been going up. Charts are what charts are. Data is what it is, and there's a good chance we're going to see a retracement in values for a few years.
Yeah. I you keep seeing all these numbers like it going up, and I'm watching Orlando's flat. Orlando isn't moving. It really is flat. And then I get get like everyone else the emails from the builders, and you're starting to see the price cuts. Taylor Morrison every week, every Thursday, price cuts, and they're big price cuts. Some of these are 30% price cuts on new homes, and they're still not moving.
So the silver lining here is, I think that by understanding this stuff, it allows you to position your business to survive at least. If you're not going to thrive. And I was going to say before, when I came into the business, the office I was at was mostly focused on property management. You know, people are going to need your help in some way, shape, or form. If they're stuck in their house and they're underwater, they can't sell for more than they paid for it, they might need to rent it out. That's just one example.
Exactly. I've done more property lease agreements recently than I have in ages. And I don't mind them. You learn how to do them. Is okay if I'm going to show it, and I'm going, I charge half a month's rent just to list it. I won't manage it right now, but I'll list it, right? And so if I get 3 of those a month, I've covered my nut. But what I'll do is I'll tell people, okay, we're gonna schedule from 10 o'clock. I've got openings from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Pick a time, 15-minute window in there, and do them all at one time. Use your time wisely. So
and if you build that business now, what I watched at that boutique office in Philly was when the market came back around, he had the relationships with a lot of those homeowners, and then he ended up having a lot of
listings.
Yeah. So it's not all doom and gloom, but I think I just don't think it's fair to tell like depending on the person's situation, that it makes sense to buy right now because in 2 years it's going to be higher. If somebody has a longer term,
I'll tell you, we did one. I've got one closing the end of the month. It's only 262,000, but wow, did we nail it? There's a program out there a lot of people don't know about. It's called SPCP. Okay, it actually gives a $5,000 grant. Doesn't have to be paid back. Gives you a credit for $500 for the appraisal, and a $500 credit for home warranty.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a 3% down home ready program. And what's interesting, it's based on where you currently live, not where the house is.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So what it's doing is it's taking people in the census tracts that are about 80% or 90% of median, and giving them an opportunity to go buy a house anywhere they want.
Okay.
Because Hometown Heroes for us in Florida is gone. We're using it. They replenish it every week, but it's just done. It's done for right now. So these people didn't have money. So we're like, okay, we found this, let's try it. And it's working fantastic. Plus you can get up to 5% closing cost contribution on it. And we got 4 from the seller.
So you're helping people, you're addressing the problem by helping that people buy with little money down. And they have little risk out of pocket.
Yep. Yeah. It's having those relationships, with your lenders, with your vendors, like, hey, how do we make this whole thing work? It's time to get creative. Look at all different kinds of solutions. Is what
you just can't sit around and say, oh, the market's going to come back around and I'll be better again. You might have to get a little more like you said, more creative.
It's old school to me, and it's kind of fun. It's old school. Get up in the morning. I've got self-scheduled basically 8:30 to 10 o'clock, hitting the phones. It's back to old school.
Yeah, and people are going to have to sell if they lose their jobs. There are always life situations, and there's plenty of business out there. It's just not as easy as it was.
You gotta be top of mind, just top of mind. It's dropping the emails, dropping a quick text, consistent follow-up. I've worked internet leads, pretty much the whole time since I've moved over from real estate for mortgages. And I can tell you on average 8 to 9 months to convert somebody.
Yeah.
And that's where you lose your competition, because after the third phone call, most people are like, I'm not bothering.
Yep. You just keep at them.
Just keep at them.
Yeah.
And you'll get phone calls out of the blue like, oh, hey, I can't tell you how many I've had where been in touch with them for 2 years, and all of a sudden you get a call, hey, Brendan, I'm ready to buy. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Cool. That's a bonus this month.
I got your postcard. That stuff happens all the time, but they got it a year ago.
Yeah. I kept it. Oh, okay. Yeah.
I should have kept doing that. Fire engine. Yeah. So yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. We could probably talk about this stuff all day, but guys, definitely just try to brush up a little and don't believe the headlines every time. This isn't total tinfoil hat stuff that you're hearing Brendan talking about. Like,
no, it's real. It's not. It's real. And would you rather be prepared for it or get blindsided? That's the whole thing. If you know it's coming, you prepare your people for it. And there's always opportunities in these times. Always opportunities.
Probably more.
Exactly.
For the people who innovate.
Yeah. Well, the wealthiest people always get rich on the downturns, not on the up. It's on the down.
Yeah. So start thinking about the affluent and what they're going to want to do when prices crash. Start building those relationships now. What do you say to the idea? I like the idea. If there's going to be hyperinflation, and you just want to hold on to your assets, like real stuff, like gold and your house.
Silver. I have a bunch of silver. I have a ton of silver.
Yeah, silver, gold. But in terms of real estate, my wife and I were talking about whether we should sell our Florida house because we're leaning more toward Pennsylvania these days. And I'm like, maybe we should just keep it for a few years, because if they print like crazy, then there's your hedge against inflation.
Against the inflation.
Yeah. So you could make that case to investors. Maybe I wouldn't do it to a first-time buyer.
No, I wouldn't do it to a first time. No, investors is like, you may want to hold on to it. Yeah. The hardest part is the rents right now, because the incomes aren't staying up on the rents, with the tax increases and things like that. That's where, like, Orlando's fallen about 4% in the past 12 months.
The rents have?
Yeah. But they've also, they're throwing up apartments left and right. So our occupancy rate, which should stay about 94, 95, is down to like 92 right now. Okay. So with more open, you gotta move a little bit.
You might have a supply thing, and a lot of people live in Orlando.
Demand.
Yeah, a lot of people living in Orlando don't live there.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually went to the GOBA presentation. They were actually showing that more people are moving out of Orlando than moving in right now. You know where they're going? Lakeland, Ocala, Daytona.
Cheaper?
Yep.
Yeah. Makes sense. Well, thanks for coming, man. I do appreciate it. I'll make sure that I continue to watch your show, and everybody else does.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Feel free to reach out to Brendan. Yep. And guys,
anytime.
send your referrals down there.
Yeah. Always happy to.
Yeah, we might have you on again in a month or two to see where things have gone.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. But my money right now, I'll tell you, money's on a June rate cut. I just don't think he's going to do it in May. I think he's going to hold out to June. Okay. I think that'll be the first one. It depends. The biggest thing will be what happens in commercial over the next 2 months, commercial paper, because the European Central Bank came out today and told everybody tighten your ship up. That's a central bank saying it.
Yeah, I just can't believe the stock market's doing what it's doing.
Oh, it makes no sense. I'm out. I'm totally out.
I'm not getting hurt. Like I manage my risk, but I've made some bad trades thinking that the market can stay irrational longer than you have. And I've been a little victim of that. I've been trading a little while, but like in NVIDIA, for example, and stuff, I'm like, come on, this has to go down, and it's not. It's going down.
It will. It will, and when it does, crash and burn.
I've got long dated puts now.
Yeah. Okay.
Nothing short. Can't do it. All right.
Give it about 3 weeks and then start shorting.
Yeah, hopefully. That's what I would have said 3 weeks ago. All right. Well, thanks for coming on again, man.
Oh,
It was nice
anytime.
talking to you.
Anytime. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. Guys, we'll be back Monday. Josh will be back with the Josh energy for us. Definitely post your Taylor Swift memes on Facebook with the Super Bowl coming. Enjoy the game, and we'll talk soon. See you, man.
Take care.